So I think something people still struggle with would definitely be guilt. Guilt for not knowing what they know now, guilty for feeling that it took too long for them to become aware of injustices towards marginalized people, for example. Guilt, that is a struggle for a lot of people. And what I say to that is, yes, let's acknowledge our blind spots, let's acknowledge the biases we have, and rather than feeling guilty and staying in that space of guilt, which in my opinion doesn't serve anyone, it doesn't serve anyone at all. Let's come from a place of, now that I know what I know, what can I do? What can I do with the information I have now? What can I do within my community, within my organization, within my family, at home, which I believe is the most influential, powerful place you can be? How do I show up as a partner? How do I show up as a caregiver, as a parent? So yes, I believe guilt is something people struggle with, but if we can move past guilt and into a more empowering standpoint of what can I do now, we're able to actually make some change. The other piece that I often find people struggle with is having conversations, having uncomfortable conversations with it, which is often the case when you're doing equity and inclusion work. And let's be honest, we're in an era where cancel culture is very real. I struggle with it. I often am concerned about offending or being called out. And so it's a real concern for a lot of people. People don't want to offend. And what I say to that is, we really need to kind of get over it and start to get comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. And a good starting place for that is understanding that we're not here to be right, we're here to get it right. That's a quote from Brene Brown, and I often refer to it because I think, and what I've seen is, if we come into conversations with that understanding, with that mutual understanding that this is not about ego, our intention isn't to offend, but it's truly to become more aware and to get it right, then we can facilitate these conversations in a more safe space. So yes, when it comes to guilt, let's get over it and let's have more empowering a standpoint as far as what can we do now with the information we have now. And when it comes to uncomfortable conversations, let's remember that we're here to get it right, not to be right. So I'm very excited for my first book to be released in spring 2022. So just around the corner. A little backstory on how I came to writing this book. I've been really fortunate to work with about 8 school boards across Ontario, and I facilitate literacy workshops with elementary school students. And for years, I've been sharing the story of Viola Desmond, our Nova Scotian trailblazer. And in sharing her story, it's one of my favorite stories. Her life is just so remarkable. I noticed how students reacted to me sharing the story and learning about Viola Desmond. And it really resonated with me because I recall growing up in school, the history I was taught about Black people, it was very narrow and very limited. We often talked about how we were treated as less than, and we really suffered, and all, the really dark, ugly parts of what was done to Black people. And when I shared the Viola Desmond story, I really focused a lot on how she was an entrepreneur, how she was a leader in her community, how she made her own money, and she was a boss. And you could see the students' faces light up, and they, like myself growing up, we're parched for stories that really told the full humanity of Black people. and not just this limited version of Black history. And it is my belief that Black history is history, period. And when we're not being told the full history, when we're not sharing the full story of a people, we're being miseducated. And that really bothered me, and it really stuck with me, and it came up again when I was facilitating these literacy workshops. And so I'm so pleased that I was been able to connect and partner with Pearson Publishing, the world's learning company, as they're known for, and put together this collection of different stories of Black Canadian trailblazers. And so I talk about Lucy and Thornton Blackburn, this lovely couple from Toronto, Ontario, who started the first taxi service company in Toronto. I talk about Mifflin Gibbs, who was from Victoria, BC, and he was the first Black elected official in British Columbia. I also talk about Violet King from Calgary, Alberta. She was the first Black female lawyer. And even in writing this book, I became so inspired and re-energized by reading about these people and seeing myself in them in some ways. And so it is my intention with this book that students take from it that they too can be change makers. Anyone can bring about change and work for change. I also want students to take from this book that they can overcome their challenges as they'll learn from these people. They definitely had their challenges that they had to overcome. And I want them to be able to recognize that because of these people, because of Lucy and Thornton Blackburn and Mifflin Gibbs and Violet King, because of their actions, they were able to open up opportunities for us today. They kind of paved the way for us to be trailblazers in our own right. And I'm also excited that this book is not just a book, but it's also a resource for educators and teachers to facilitate conversations with students. And I'm super proud of it. So spring 2022, Canadian Trailblazers through Pearson Publishing. Look out for it. Teachers, students, parents, I'm super excited. So it is my sincere hope that we stay committed, we stick to the course of creating truly equitable, inclusive, diverse spaces. For those of us that are steeped in this work, I think we wish we could snap our fingers and all the inequities in the world diminish, but that simply is not how it works. This truly is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so I just really hope, again, that we stay the course long after, the Black squares and hashtags are long gone. I really hope that we continue to do this good work and that we work together, because being divisive is not the answer. We truly need to come together to bring about real change.